Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, those of you still on the fence, welcome back to another episode of Derailed with Archaic Skids. We've been gone for probably a little over a month, something along those lines, but I am very honored to have our guest on the program this evening, James Ray. He's been a guest on the show before, talking nuclear with Mark Schneider. That is not the conversation this evening. We're going to talk Facebook censorship. We're going to talk COVID. We're going to talk Bitcoin. And James knows who came up with it. So it's very interesting. Y'all bear with us. If you have questions, leave them in the comments for sure. And here we go. Uh, everyone enjoy our friend James. He's back. James, what's up, my man?
Hey, it's an honor to be here, RKX Kids. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh yeah, man. It's my pleasure.
And I'm always interested in talking about the ancient times of cypherpunks. When I first got on the internet, I was saying these things that I say that I had been saying anyway, and people said, "Oh, you sound like a cypherpunk," and I'm like, "Well." At first, I'm insulted. I'm like, "Punk? You sound like punk? All I'm doing is advocating privacy and freedom. How can I be a punk?" But I went from hating the term to loving it, and it was interesting, just going through and seeing all the faces of these really smart dudes who came up with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And why don't you just, if you can, or if you want to, explain that term cypherpunk, like so that people
Yeah.
understand what that means.
Well, there's different ones of us. The smarter ones, the Hal Finneys and all. The term was cypherpunks write code, meaning that cypherpunks write computer code. They do programming, and ultimately, what they thought, if you saw that video, which I guess we should put in the comments or something.
Oh,
Um,
I will. I will be linking it for people to be able to watch it.
yeah,
So
ultimately, what they thought was that the the advances in cryptography, especially public key cryptography, and things like zero knowledge proofs and stuff like that, would allow us the freedom to hopefully get things done. As far as privacy, freedom, individuality, and stuff like that. But it's happened probably a lot slower than it should have happened, and
mhm.
um, at some point, well, let's not do it soon. Let's make them listen to the show for a while, but at some point we'll reveal what the person that I think was Satoshi Nakamoto, who, spoiler alert, was in the Reason video, and but there were so many smart people in that. I mean, Bryce Wilcox, Zuko, is incredibly smart, and he came up with something like this, all this stuff. I mean, there's a few mathematical roots to all of this, and it's so arcane, and it takes so much brain power to just figure it out that it's kind of, you know, it's crazy for me to even be talking about it because I, I I'm I'm this monkey.
It's like how's Joe Rogan put it down? Just a gorilla trying to figure out the world.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Well, and I love Rogan, and the thing is, Rogan has done a great job recently turning me against the news media even more by
I mean,
every
that exchange with him and Dr. Gupta was probably one of the greatest things that's ever happened in media in the history of ever. Like
yeah. And
he
great,
was so good about it, and the way he presented it in such a way that was like, What do you mean, man? Like they lied, you know they lied. Like what are you doing? Like
Well, and also he wouldn't let Gupta change the subject. He wouldn't let anything happen. He basically showed his mixed martial arts roots, and once he had the guy, he was going to get the cap, and he got the cap,
yeah.
and it was funny as hell when he did.
It
Because
was it was
the
so good.
struggle made it better.
I mean, Gupta actually made it better because he's sitting there just stuttering like and I'm like, dude, man, like
But
you lost, bro.
then
Like it's
CNN
game set match, you know.
the next day CNN makes it better by trying to backtrack rather than just taking the L and shutting up like the old CNN would have done. They
Yeah.
instead tried to struggle and tried to get out of it, and it made it worse for them. And
Oh my god, it was so bad because like you think like I'm not as old as you obviously, but I remember back in the day where CNN would say things like, "Well, we had this wrong," you know, and now we know we had it wrong, and here's what we know today. And that they're like, "No, but it is horse dewormer," and you're like, "God, stop!"
yeah, and they just it it was painful to watch. I mean, these poor guys, and this once proud network, and I've been that to that area in Atlanta. Actually, it was kind of
Mhm.
getting run down, and the poor. I mean,
I mean, they did a lot. They built it up, like for sure. Like, I mean, when I say they built it up, they provided a lot of opportunities for people there in the beginning. Whatever they did so bad. Like that was such a disaster for CNN. Like I'm fairly certain they sent Gupta there to like try to whatever, keep Joe from suing him or some nonsense, which I don't think he was ever going to do in the first place.
yeah, I mean, Rogan suing them would kind of be an un-Rogan like thing for Rogan to do because it it would be punching down, so to
Yeah,
speak.
it's punching down. You're talking about CNN in the podcaster and it's
Yeah,
punching
yeah,
down.
he's a podcaster that 10 years ago would have thought he was pathetic. Now CNN is the pathetic one, and
And now he's like
yeah,
the biggest media personality that exists anywhere on planet Earth. So you're saying that Rogan would be punching down just to CNN? That's the funniest shit I think I've probably ever heard, and it's also probably true, honestly.
yeah,
Like,
unfortunately,
all right,
it's funnier.
we're gonna talk about a couple of things. We're gonna talk about Bitcoin. We're gonna talk about uh, you think you know who Shitoshi is. So we'll
Yeah,
talk about that, but that we'll save that for a
we gotta
little bit
save that for
later.
the end. Although
Right, right, right,
other people have spilled the beans, I gotta say. This is
right, right, right. But a lot of people have made a lot of claims, and it's not real easy to know. Like if these people are, and, like you can watch the videos and you can go, oh, maybe or whatever. I get that. Anyway, but what? Let's jump into this because this is something you and I discussed on the phone earlier, and I think people have a lot of interest in this. You, you got put in Facebook jail, my understanding. So let's talk about how you got put in Facebook jail for apparently making a threat against a fake thing, like meme, a nonsense. Like,
yeah,
let's talk about that.
okay. It's a parody page, a parody site, and you know, I've always hated the debates commission. Um, they're
You mean for like when they set up the political debates, right?
yeah, the commission on rigged presidential debates is
Nice.
if you go to the Facebook page Commission on Rigged Presidential Debates, that's the parody, and
Right.
then the actual, they don't have a Facebook presence as far as I know, but they
Mm.
do have a presence on Twitter, and on Twitter, their presence is at debates, so they're really easy to troll. And so I've spent a long time trolling them on Twitter, and I thought I was going to get in trouble on Twitter for messing with them, and it turns out I got in trouble instead on Facebook for messing with their parody, and I'm not that threatening, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm threatening this parody. I don't even know where the parody is. I mean, I don't know the name of the person who made the parody. I think I've communicated with them, but you don't just ask people their names on the internet when you're saying I like your site. You're like, I like your site. Oh, okay, thank you. Nobody asks for their name. So
Right.
the I did these things. Now I'm most of the way through a 1 month zuckening.
Oh my God, a month?
Yeah, and this is like, okay, the previous time that my previous thought crime was right before Andrew Cuomo got in trouble. I I put out a meme. Well, and I didn't even make this, okay? But I reposted a meme that got me in trouble. That it was it was I think it was the smacking fannies and killing grannies one. You know,
That was a good meme, by the way.
yeah, well, he'd been doing both. He'd been killing these old people in nursing homes, and he was clearly, for a long time, people had been ignoring the fact that he was guilty of sexual, harassment or whatever. And
Mm.
so, I put it out.
Which can we address that right quick? It
Oh
seems
yeah,
weird to me that that's what took him down, like that took him out, but the fact that he killed probably 20,000 people, that's fine. Like, don't
okay,
worry
yeah.
about that. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
that's
to
no, no,
interrupt, but
no,
carry on.
no. That's legitimate and a valid point. Okay, but the thing is that after he got in trouble, all right, I don't even know how to describe this thing. Okay, after he got in trouble, and during my first zuckening, I was zucked for a week for that, and during that, the shit hit the fan about him, and so then I come back, and shit, I don't know how to. Okay, oh, all right, I'm gonna send it to you on Twitter, and
Okay.
hopefully that will. But anyway, all right, let me see here. Um, it's a Cuomo meme. It's so all right. All right. And this is, you know, I'll admit I'm disgusting. I don't know how to describe it.
All my favorite people are considered
It's a
disgusting.
strap
So there's
on.
that.
Okay, it's not even. It's a strap on. Um,
Oh
hand.
my God. What?
How do I describe this, dude?
I
Help
can't.
me out.
I can't. Like, I legitimately can't even share this on the screen
I
because
know you're
that
gonna
was.
get demonetized. Okay, you're gonna everything
Oh,
that
I'm
I
not
do.
worried. I don't care about that. I'm like, I'm worried they would take this stream down. They'd be like, you can't show that nonsense. What's wrong with you?
Well, okay, all right. I thought that, but the thing is, I was so pissed at Facebook for zucking me over the much less spicy one, which I will also share with your thing in a moment. That I shared this one. I'm like, let's see what they do, and they didn't react at all. So this is them, and now and
Oh man.
I'm you know I'm just a thought criminal. That's all there is. So,
Isn't that so? I do actually. I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to touch base with you on that. This whole idea of like a thought criminal, right? Like you either have these particular thoughts, or you share these thoughts, or you share these memes or whatever, and maybe sometimes you don't even necessarily agree with the meme. You're just doing it from a perspective of you think it's funny,
yes,
right?
yes, many times.
um and it goes to this perspective of like, how do we um how do we as people understand, like, look, where do we separate comedy from reality, whatever. My point being is like like I said, like a lot of times people will share things, they'll share memes, they'll share videos, they'll share whatever, and they're not actually even in any way saying like, yeah, I agree with this. They just think it's funny, right?
Yeah.
So how do we deal with these situations where like Facebook throws or puts you in Facebook jail or whatever for a month, or YouTube puts people in face or in YouTube jail, or Twitter puts people in jail. Um, and the argument is essentially like, well, what they promoted and or blah blah blah, which isn't really true, right? A lot of these people, I know. A former friend of mine, Reed Coverdale, has recently experienced this from Twitter, where they said, you know, essentially that he had made a threat, and I'm pretty sure he got like a permanent ban or whatever. How
I
do we deal with that situation when no one has any power over? There's nothing we can do for these people. Why are you sitting in your underwear, James? The
I
hell
walk
is going
around.
on? What did we just?
You weren't supposed to see that I was in my underwear. I walk
Well,
in my underwear now
we did.
all the time. All right, back to anyway. I was off to get a drink. Um.
I put on a t-shirt. We're good.
Anyways, what was I? What were we talking about, man? Now I'm focused on my
Jesus
underwear in bed.
Christ. I was saying, like, how do we deal with these situations where people are just being just erased when it doesn't make sense because they're not doing anything. They make jokes, they're saying, nonsense things, whatever. And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, you violated our hate speech, or you violated our policy against violence or whatever. But it's a joke. Like, these, it's very clearly a joke. Like,
Well,
how do we deal with that?
I don't know, but Facebook is now changing their name, but also
Meta.
Facebook's, yeah, Meta now. Okay, but one of Facebook's properties is Instagram. Okay, and I'm on Instagram like I'm on Facebook. I'm not that active there, but I just looked, and I can post on Instagram, and so the temptation is really strong. You know what I'm saying? To
so
post my
you so
thought
you burned
crime.
off Facebook, but you're like, well.
Well, yeah, to post the same thought crime, on Instagram. And what I'm doing, okay, I'm like 4 days from the 30-day end of my Facebook zucking. Then I'm thinking, well,
Yeah. So you're thinking, well, maybe.
I mean, but
That's funny.
I don't want to be that much of an asshole to them. I'm trying to tone down my assholishness, believe it or not.
No, you
It's
shouldn't.
not easy, obviously, but I'm
No.
trying. But it's one of those things. I mean, I just have trouble. I I had um in my old elementary school, we had this Spanish teacher, and she was such a sweet lady,
Hmm.
Mrs. Gomez, and her family had been, cruelly exiled from Cuba, and it was horrible. And communism had taken everything they had, and so she was forced to become a Spanish teacher to these bratty English kids, including me. And uh, unfortunately, she had a rather strong accent, and okay, she rather than saying sheet of paper, she would say shit of paper. And I was in fifth grade, and I thought this was hilarious. And so I engineered her into saying shit about half a dozen times before she caught on to what I was doing. And I was just a terrible kid. They sent me to the office. And some of the adults, they they couldn't help laughing.
It's funny.
I
Oh,
was
nice.
in
I
trouble.
like it. Like that's just funny to me. Like that it should
Oh,
work out that way.
uh, I don't
That's
know. I
funny.
deserve I
Hey,
deserve it.
okay.
I'm pretty
let's
sure. But back to the
let.
subject. This cypherpunks thing, this Bitcoin thing, um, it there were monetary things preceding Bitcoin
Mhm.
that were interesting. Um, David Chaum's DigiCash was kind of the most famous one, and it
Right.
was.
Well, okay. Before let's don't jump too far here because this is one of the things that's very interesting to me, is that a lot of people say Bitcoin is first in best dressed, but that's not really true.
Mhm.
Like they
Well,
weren't first, they were best dressed. Maybe you can make that argument, but they were not first in best dressed. So okay, I'm sorry. So go ahead.
yeah, but Bitcoin is kind of agreed to have the kind of first mover advantage that my old beloved Eagle had. And let me tell you about first mover advantage, okay? First mover advantage can fool you into thinking that you are smarter than you are because you're making a lot of money, the
Mhm.
money flowing in, you're everything's good. um, People think you're smart. There's these other upstart companies that have better technology, but your company is still growing bigger even though you're kind of clunky and backward and everything else.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
Bitcoin is that way, in the way that e-gold was that way in very many ways that I see. And it's cool, it's uncool, it's great,
Right.
it's normal. I mean, it's one of those things, and I'm looking at it. I'm glad I have what little Bitcoin that I have, and I'm not going to say how much. If I were smart instead of stupid, I would have hundreds or at least dozens of Bitcoins.
Right.
And
Right.
instead
Right. Right.
I do not. But it,
Well, and isn't that weird though? Like James, I gotta ask you, like, isn't it weird that like a lot of people, even friends of mine, that they look back, right, and they had these opportunities to collect this thing, but they were essentially, and rightfully so. I in some regards I would make that argument that they were told like, look, this thing is just nonsense, right? It's just like, what are you doing? Like, why would you buy this? It doesn't make any sense. And they were, and in all honesty, in their own defense, it would be a very good argument. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, look, in
And
defense
now
of
they
what
all
you're
look back
saying,
just like you do and go, fuck.
but
Like,
no, in defense of what you're saying, all of the batshit crazy libertarian anarchist, crypto anarchist,
All
cypher
bought it.
ideas,
They all
every
bought it.
goddamn one had failed before Bitcoin, and there's this, oh shit. I should find the Hal Finney quote. Let me see if I can find it. Oh fuck. I'll just post it. Um but there's this Hal Finney quote. Let me post it.
Oh, I know what you're talking. Yeah, yeah.
Um
It's
and
it's hilarity in a way.
yeah, and how actually I can't post while media is uploading. I wonder what that means. Oh, okay. This feature is okay. You recently posted something that violates Facebook properties. I'm trying to post it on Facebook. Let me post it on Float where
Oh no.
I'm such a horrible person. Um
That's funny.
anyway, Hal Finney was able to see in the future and shit. Yeah.
My point being though is that
Okay, yeah, you tell me.
if we could all hindsight 2020 things, it would be a very different game, obviously. But the one of the things that I notice is that a lot of people, and here's the funniest thing, and I want to get your opinion on this. One of the funniest things to me is that um, Peter Schiff, for instance, right?
Oh
Who
goodness.
is who is not a dumb guy. Like he's a pretty
Oh no, he's
intelligent
brilliant.
guy. He's really done well for himself and really been able to grow his business and his opportunities and whatever, right? But here's the thing: is that I've never seen anyone more against Bitcoin than Peter Schiff. And what's fucking hilarious to me, and maybe you have a thought on this, his son sold all his gold and bought Bitcoin, and now his son is richer than he is.
And
And you
yeah,
have to go to
that's,
yourself like, what are you
that's
just
fucking
like
hilarious.
barreling in? Or like, what are you doing, man? You know?
I love Peter. I love his son. I love when his son trolls him. Let me read the Hal Finney thing because we were talking about
Mhm.
Hal and Hal died of ALS. Hal was RIP. But let me just read his words because he was so much smarter than the rest of us and he was ahead of his time. It's interesting that the system can be configured to only allow a certain maximum number of coins to ever be generated. I guess the idea is that the amount of work needed to generate a new coin will become more difficult as time goes on. One immediate problem with any new currency is how to value it. Even ignoring the practical problem that virtually no one will accept it at first, there is still a difficulty in coming up with a reasonable argument in favor of a particular non zero value for the coins.
Hmm.
As an amusing thought experiment, imagine that Bitcoin is successful and becomes the dominant payment. He's saying this when Bitcoins were like less than a quarter.
Right.
As an amusing thought experiment, imagine that Bitcoin is successful and becomes the dominant payment system in use throughout the world. Then the total value of the currency should be equal to the total value of all the wealth in the world. Current estimates of total worldwide household wealth that I have found range from 100 trillion to 300 trillion with 20 million coins. That gives each coin a value of around 10 million. So the possibility of generating coins today with a few cents of compute time may be a good bet. With a payoff of something like 100 million to 1, even if the odds of Bitcoin succeeding to this degree are slim, are they really 100 to 100 million to 1 against question mark? Something to think about. How? Okay, and every word of this is a jewel. Every bit
Oh
of it
yeah.
is true. The guys. economy of language. He was so fucking brilliant. These people on cypherpunks, it's as intimidating as the thorium thing actually makes me. Okay, it's very, very humbling to a libertarian who, libertarians are famous for having these huge egos. And I'll sit here, with a huge ego and say, look, these people are so much more smart than me that it's just, that I'm a pipsqueak. I'm a mouse. They're the people.
Right. Yeah. You just feel dumb sometimes
Yeah,
when you're
and
dealing with these things.
yeah, and I've always, at least I've been able to be attracted to rather than repelled by people who are smarter than me. I know that it's possible to be so much smarter, and some of these guys. Should we go ahead and talk about Satoshi now?
Let's
Let's
do
do it.
it, but before we do it, because this is something that we had discussed on the phone earlier. So I 100% want to get into who is Satoshi, but we when we were talking about Bitcoin on the phone, we were saying you had said that you don't know that much necessarily about it. So one of the things that I wanted to cover with you specifically was a lot of countries are starting to essentially ban Bitcoin. They're saying like, nah, blah blah blah. Which, first of all, we both know you can't ban Bitcoin. That's not a thing, right?
Yeah,
Like if you have internet access, like we're done here. We have Bitcoin. Like that's not a thing, right? But one of the things that I did learn, and it took some digging, but I did figure it out. Was that a lot of people have said China has banned Bitcoin from China, but
yeah.
that's not actually true. That's not what China did. What China technically did was ban the mining of Bitcoin. And their reason behind it was that it took too much power in
Hmm.
order to do it because these people they have to just suck in all this power for the mining operations now, and it essentially, they were saying like, look, this is bad for the community, so we have to
Oh,
ban it,
it
and
was
you're
bad
not
for the
allowed to.
environment. I mean, they
What's
have
that?
some nuclear. China has some nuclear now. They're light water reactors, but they have some nuclear. But it was bad for the environment because China had coal subsidies, and so they were actually, you know, screwing up the environment
Right. 100%.
in order to
Like they
make
were like,
Bitcoin.
uh-oh.
And this is
Like,
like making the legend come true of Bitcoin being bad for the environment. These people that talk about Bitcoin being bad for the environment drive me crazy,
oh
because
yeah.
what Bitcoin does is disables the central banking system's enablement of endless undeclared war, which is way, way more CO2 pollution creating than anything Bitcoin could
Wait,
ever
I'm
do.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got to stop you. So you're saying that uh if you're dropping fucking bombs on people, that's worse for the environment than mining Bitcoin? Like there's no way. That's not what you're saying, right? That's what you're saying?
Well, not just that. I mean, to me, to
Sorry, everyone. James is like just took this
with the
massive
massive
hit off a bong, so he needs a minute.
So to drop these bombs on the victims, you need to make the bombs.
Hmm.
Making bombs creates a bunch of CO2 just to make the
Weird.
before you've ever dropped the bomb. Once you drop the bomb, obviously a bunch of CO2 is made from blasting the people. And
Right.
so, it's all a bunch of pollution. And these hypocrites that whine about Bitcoin being a pollution source don't take that into account. They don't take the enablement of war by central banking, and the enablement not just of war, of all kinds of fiscal irresponsibility that wastes resources, that ruins lives, that ruins you know economies, and so it drives me crazy. I waste your audience's time all night about this. Let's
No, no,
talk
no,
about
no,
people
no.
go through that
You won't
knocking.
waste it because that's what they tune in for, people to tell them like this is fucking retarded. You know what I mean?
All
Like
right.
it is retarded. I'm sorry. Like the whole thing is fucking retarded. I witnessed the Afghanistan pullout shit, and we all saw the little game that they played with like, no, no, no. Look, y'all lying. It's We know this now, and if you don't know it, there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that you don't understand that. But let's get back to the Bitcoin thing right quick because Bitcoin has our friend, you and I both have a common buddy in Mark Snyder, who is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's a nuclear operator. Like he's a very smart guy. You and I did a podcast with him personally, talking about like where are we going, right? Like how to handle things. He has specifically stated a lot of shit about these things. Now, one of the things that I noticed in the Chinese government's argument was that uh, Bitcoin mining, right, is what they said, cost too much money. Like it was too
Yeah.
much. It was pulling too much power off the grid, and so they had to do something about it, which is why they banned it. Which is interesting because the Chinese government is the number one government globally that's pushing nuclear power. So that's interesting to me. But we're not going to get into the nuclear power side. But
Yeah.
we are going to get into who is Satoshi.
Okay.
You
And
say that you have an idea. So
yeah, let me give some background first, and then I'll say who he is, because or who I think he is, because I was on cypherpunks and I was a very minor cypherpunk. I mean, all these other cypherpunks, the cypherpunks that are smart, write code, the cypherpunks that are not so smart, like me, rant. And you know,
nice.
but what else I would do besides ranting is I even back then I really, really, really hated the polling institutions that the news media has, where they would, you know, basically exclude libertarians and Greens and any other party, and only include libertarians, only include Republicans and Democrats in their polling, and
Mhm.
be very various ways biased against us. And so I hated their guts, and I wanted a way to get around them. And the way I saw to get around them back then in the early 1990s was these Ladbroke House and various other odds makers in London and in Moscow and just about everywhere else except the United States of America, betting on US elections as if our candidates were horses. And
Well,
this
they
always,
are horses.
yeah,
They weren't wrong.
this always struck me as a really cool thing, because I figure, hey, horses is probably a step up from these assholes. It's not horses. And so I'm like, I'm happy to be. And you got to understand, back then the internet was a different thing than it is now. And so back then, in order to get the odds from Ladbroke House or from Moscow or something like that, if you weren't in the news media, if you were in the news media, like CBS and NBC and all that, would actually get these odds, because they knew, just like I knew, that they were full of shit and
Mhm.
that the odds were actually, the real thing. And so they would get the odds. And for a brief moment, like a few days, I think, there was an arbitrage opportunity where, if you trusted the bookies on both sides, you could have actually bet heavy on one side in Moscow and bet heavy on the other side of the same election in London, and won no matter who won the election. This is my kind of gambling. where you always win.
You
May not
always
win,
win no matter what.
but
Yeah.
yeah, you may not win much, but you always win. That's my kind of gambling. So anyway, but that was one of the many things that fascinated me about
It's
Ladbrokes.
like a roulette when you go to a roulette table and you put $5 on black and $5 on red.
But
You
then
always win.
the house is going to win, aren't they? Because
Well,
they
I
sometimes
mean, I
pick a
guess that you would
queen.
need to put 5 on one and 6 on the other, and then hope for the
Even
best.
then, the the green, that green where they get
Oh
everything.
yeah, that's fair. Okay,
So
yeah.
that's where they win, and we can't let that happen. Anyway, all right, back to where we were. Okay, I my Gmail address is oddsman@gmail.com, and I was always
Mhm.
oddsman is my
You
moniker.
probably shouldn't have said that out loud.
I know
Now
I
it's all
probably
hell
I
breaks
fucked
loose.
everything up. Everybody knows that's James M. Ray anyway. But
You're
anyway,
gonna
I
get nonsense.
I was yeah. Who knows what I'm going to have now, but I needed back then Ladbrokes and the Moscow bookies. None of the bookies had a website, because
Mm,
they were bookies. They didn't really think about the internet. This internet, what the fuck is internet?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was tracking them before they were tracking. Now of course you can find the odds, but back then, in order to get those odds, I had to get one of the people on the Cypherpunks list to help me, and
Mm,
that person was a, a, a super smart guy who invented a system, kind of a pre-Bitcoin system called Hashcash, and his name is Adam Back, Back, and
okay.
Adam is featured in the Reason video, and he's brilliant, really smart, and he denies being Satoshi, and maybe he's right. But if I were him, I would also deny being Satoshi.
Well, but would you? Because Satoshi has 1,000,000 bitcoins.
Yeah, look, he doesn't.
Now think about 1,000,000 bitcoins at what is it, $59,000 or something a piece. Like you immediately become quite literally one of the richest people on the face of the planet. Like
He's as far as I
you
know.
become Elon Musk telling the UN, well, okay, I'll give you $6 billion as soon as you open up your books and explain why you were making people blow you children in order to get food. You know what I mean? First of all, I mean, okay, not first of all. We'll go back to that in a minute, but like, why would someone keep their? It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay,
That's
the
what I'm
thing
going
is,
with.
what you got to understand is that Adam Back had money before he ever created Bitcoin. He has enough money at this point, even without grabbing into the Satoshi stash, to have moved from London, where he was helping me, and he helped me for no money. Okay, I mean, I was grateful, and I suspected he was Satoshi long, long, long before there were articles saying he was
Okay.
Satoshi. And the only reason I'm saying he's Satoshi now is because these articles said. But anyway, Adam has had the means, without pulling into the Satoshi stash, to move from London to Malta, and Malta is gorgeous. I mean, it's the best place in the
Right,
Mediterranean.
right, right, right.
It's a really cool place to live. Um, if I were him, I think I would probably want to live there. And he doesn't
Right.
really need uh, to grab the Satoshi stash. I mean, anyone who does grab that stash, at that point, he's confirming that he is, that Satoshi is him. And that would be a
Mhm.
very dangerous thing to do, because, criminals would want to steal it all. Criminals, including government criminals. And that's what killed you.
Let me. Yeah, you're right. Well, government criminals is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest threat,
yeah.
honestly,
They're
because
very
they'll be like,
dangerous.
oh, like I said, and I mentioned this that apparently the UN asked Elon Musk. This is something I just recently learned about. They said, hey, if you can give us $6 billion, we can solve global hunger. They said this to him, and everyone focused in on the fact that that's only 2% of Elon Musk's wealth, right? Which Jesus Christ, good job, Elon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
but
$6 billion is 2%. Like that's okay, I guess.
these are the same incompetents that were, people were selling kids for sex.
Right, right, right. Well, and that's my
The
point
United
is that
Nations is
they
fucked up.
said this to him, and apparently his response to that was, "Why don't you open up your books, right, to show what you're doing?" And he also he had tweeted something apparently at some point that was along the lines of like, um, you were you have very good arguments, or evidence, I suppose, of people that were telling children, like, if you want to get food, you have to give me oral sex, fellatio, right? And he goes, so why don't you open up your investigations into, and then maybe we can talk. And I went, I mean, look, Elon Musk is, I mean, at any given point of the day, he's the richest or second richest guy, right?
Mhm.
On earth. Um, but one thing that it was incredibly interesting to me was him calling the fucking UN out. Like, you people are doing this awful shit and you're using people's money to do it. And that's messed up. Like, why would I give you any kind of money? I just found that very interesting. And so, I mean, I guess I wanted to get your opinion on that, but also, so
Well,
Satoshi,
I'm
there's no way to know if it's really him. Like, you
Yeah,
think it might be,
there's
but
good
it's.
articles out there about why it might be Adam, and various things like Satoshi's writing style, which looks like it's English rather than American. Various
Mm,
other things look like it could be Adam, but who knows who it really is. I mean, it was more fun back before I suspected it was Adam, and then back before the article came back, which kind
mm.
of galled me and upset me. Once when you're keeping a secret and then someone else just totally blabs the secret and you're like, fuck, and then you're like, wait a minute, I didn't have this secret in common with you. If you figured it out and I figured it out, then it was probably already figured out. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, there's got to be people knowing this shit if I know it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That sucks. Right.
But
Like,
I
they're
just
like,
don't want to. I don't want to endanger Adam. I mean, I don't know where on Malta he lives. I've never met him in person. I would love to meet him in person. I would love to interview him and talk to him. I think he's a fabulously smart
mm,
guy, and the things he's doing with Blockstream are fabulously great. That are gonna do the world a lot of good, and Blockstream has these other really smart people working at it.
oh yeah, yeah.
So it's a great news for the world.
I remember watching a video, or I'm sorry, a podcast. I think it was, what was it called? It was Timcast, and they had Max Kaiser, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
Max Kaiser is like, he's like the Bitcoin guy. Like, everyone
He-
know, like, he is
he's
like
the
the
toxic
god of Bitcoin.
maximalist, I think is what they call him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a maximalist. I mean, I like the other cryptos too. The thing about it
Mm.
is Bitcoin dominates so much that the toxic maximalists, or let's not call them toxic, the maximalists can say, hey, we don't even need these other shit coins. And back in my e-gold days, we were being threatened so hard, and we had the weakness of being centrally controlled that we could be threatened, but
Mm.
we were being threatened so hard that I liked the competition. I mean, I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
I fell in love with the Ebolian lady. I liked Pecunix. I liked, what I liked Cyber Gold. There were various Liberty Dollar. I liked the what was it? Crown Gold, my buddy Sean, and various of these people I'm still friends with. Sean, I mean, various
Mhm.
of these people I'm friends with, where they were supposed to be my competitors and enemies, and they weren't enemies. I mean, we would end up
Right.
getting together, and in the case of Pam, who got killed, unfortunately, we got together at a restaurant. When you're at these conferences and stuff, you're going to end up with your competitors anyway. And so, we're at a restaurant and everybody's being wary, but everybody's also drinking. And the subject turns around to fraud. And my thing at the company at eGold/OmniPay was trying to prevent the customers from being defrauded. And
Mm.
there's a lot of fraud that goes on with Bitcoin, where people defraud people with Bitcoin and
Mm.
steal it in various ways. And this was happening a lot in the
Mm.
eGold world, and it was also happening to eBullion. And so I was talking to Pam, and Pam was talking to me, and she's this brilliant lady. It was very cool. And I was unable to say the things that I knew until she said a word, and she said a name.
Mm.
And when she said this guy's name, then I mean, because then I wasn't spilling the beans anymore, Then
Right,
I
right.
was able to talk to her, and we ended up, we would have phone calls every Friday afternoon or evening, around 5 or 6 p.m., just talking about the week, and talking about our lives, but also talking about whatever was happening in fraud land, because there was so much criminality, and the kinds of criminality that we ran across. I mean, it's depressing to note this, but I'm a student of Charles Ponzi, and so I know the ins and outs of
Mm.
Ponzi's scheme and Ponzi's original scheme. Ponzi's original scheme, compared to what was being promised in the e-gold days, or compared to what is being promised now in the Bitcoin days,
Mm.
Ponzi's original scheme was pretty fucking conservative. Okay, he wasn't
Right,
promising
right.
you that
Yeah.
much compared to what I mean. Some of these people now, if you if you look at what they're promising, they're actually there's not enough wealth in the world to justify their promise lasting for 2 or 3 years, and smarter people than me have worked this out. I'm not smart enough at math to actually know this. I know it because other people have worked it out, but it's just
Mm.
funny to me, and the problem is that people don't teach their kids the history of not just Ponzi, but the tulip thing. Like there was all kinds of scams and schemes that sucked in really smart people, not just
Yeah.
stupid people. And really smart people. I mean, what we're interested in, hey, money. How would I like to get money? I would like to get money without working, and I would like to get it in huge quantities, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's possible, honestly. I mean, the reason that Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme is because the only thing Satoshi ever promised us, he delivered, and that was and is an honest ledger. We don't have
Right, right,
US
right.
dollar, there's
Oh,
no
no,
US
like
dollar
that
price at
is
all.
100%. Yeah.
And for the first few years of Bitcoin, it never broke the buck. It was below $1, and I was so stupid not to get a whole shitload of them back
I
then.
mean, it was sure it never broke the buck. Like I agree with you in that regard, but it did. You know what's crazy is that I didn't even know what it was. My buddy told me. like, "Hey, you should
Mhm.
get some of this," and I'm like, "I don't know what this is," and he goes, "No, you should get some," and so I'm like, I mean, whatever, I don't know, and you have to
What
understand, it
you
was
said
under a
because
dollar.
you're an anarchist?
What's
Oh,
that?
oh, so you got it earlier than me, but they said it to me because you're an anarchist and, you're that way, and I ignored them, and then the government shut down Poker Stars, and I was like, "Wait, I can play poker with this shit?"
Yeah.
And so
Oh
then,
my god, I remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was totally stupid, okay? I had no idea that Bitcoin was the world-changing thing that it was. For me, this was a way to get around the government's ban on poker. Okay, fuck
Mhm.
you, government. I'm gonna go to this thing that's called Pork Fest. By the way, have you ever been to Pork Fest?
No, I have not. I want to go.
Oh, you must. It's very important.
Okay.
You have to go. All right, you have to go from beginning to end. It's an entire week. Okay,
Okay.
because the end of it is very fun and all that. But if you just go for the end, that sucks. You have to start at the beginning when nobody knows each other, or not everybody knows each other now, but fewer people know each other. And
Right.
when you look at this stuff, and this is a total anarchy, and people are cooperating, and the campsites are, you know, getting better and better. And for me, I mean, I've always tried to get a damn hotel room because I don't want to fucking camp. I'm about to turn 60 this year.
Yeah, you're old.
Yeah, I feel like a 25-year-old. No 25-year-olds feel like me, mind you, but I feel
Right.
like a 25-year-old, and I don't want to be camping in a tent. But there's a few shitty hotel rooms on the property, and the property is very nice, and it's it's cold in the summer, okay, at
Mm.
least for me. Like one cloudy day there will
'Cause you're
turn.
all old as
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, then the next night is like 55 degrees or something like that, and you're like,
Right.
"Oh, fuck, I'm a Florida boy, what the hell?" I can't take this shit. And the drive is absolute hell, it's like 19 hours or something from here, and it's just,
Oh,
ugh,
I
misery.
would just fly. I would just take the plane and rent a
Yeah,
car. That's
I don't
me personally. Like you're not in the same
well,
exact situation I'm in, so I completely understand that.
I don't like the idea of the same-sex ball massage. I mean, I was there I was there when they were doing that, and it's not that I'm homophobic or anything like that, Hell, as far as I know, it's a heterosexual dude who's doing this to me, you know?
Right, 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 right.
I don't want
Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, if we had a free market, we could have strippers doing this to my balls, then I would not mind, okay? We could have a stripper
Jeez,
interlude,
what is happening?
and this is how it would be pleasant, I mean, there could even be
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
a
Who knows,
happy
right?
ending option as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I want Florida to legalize blowjobs, okay? And after that, what's his name? The New England Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. Robert
Oh
Kraft.
yeah, Robert Kraft, the
After
guy
that,
that just gets hand
and people,
jobs by the
yeah, people kept
Asians.
on talking about it being sex trafficking. Okay, these girls that were blowing him were like 55 years old or something like that. They were just Asian chicks trying to make a living. All right, and
Yeah, I
God
mean,
bless them as far as I'm concerned. And the thing is, Kraft was totally terrible. His lawyers got him off, and then he's a billionaire.
well, so did the Asians, by the way.
No, he was a billion. Haha. Anyway, he's a billionaire. Let me finish before we make jokes. He's a
Yes.
goddamn billionaire. His lawyers get him off, and rather than defending these girls who blew him, rather than defending these girls who really helped him out, you know, in a time of need, he abandons them, and they end up getting these legal consequences. And he should have
Yeah, weird, right?
on this. Yeah, and he should totally give money to all the libertarian Florida party of Florida candidates, but especially Martha Bueno. Martha is my project. She's in 2022, I guess, so it's a couple of years off or whatever. But we need to start on her now because the her opponents are tremendously evil, and we can do it. And she is
I've
a
had
good.
Martha on the show a couple times.
Oh, good.
She is one of my. In fact, Martha's the reason. Martha is one that told me to talk to you.
Oh, really?
Martha is by far my favorite politician, and she's not a politician because she's like, "Go fuck yourselves, I don't care." Like she
Yeah.
is
We
not only. Look, here's the thing. Not only is she incredibly intelligent, obviously, she's incredibly intelligent. She's also really hot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's
The thing
very
is, Martha
difficult to
Martha
be
is
like,
my
eh.
argument. Martha is my argument for human cloning, okay? People can
Oh,
say,
yeah.
"Oh, cloning would be a terrible thing." No. We should go back in time and clone 1,000 Martha Buenos, if not
Oh my
10,000
God.
of them. This
If you
world
could
would be
do
a lot
that,
better
we
place.
would like fucking have freedom everywhere. Probably in the world, honestly.
Yeah,
Martha
exactly.
Brando is one of the smartest
Yeah,
people I've ever
fantastic.
had
And
conversations with. She's
And
great.
okay. Oh, on the subject. All right. Martha did this thing. Okay. I just like offhand suggested it. And, Martha was in the conversation anyway. And so she did it. But Lynn Ulbricht moved to Miami and at least might
Mm,
still be living with Martha in Martha's guest house, which, by the way, is a great guest house. I've lived there for a week or a little bit less than
good.
a week, and it's
Cool.
nice. It has a pool, has a little black kitty that's very friendly. It's a great place. Anyway, Lynn is living there right now, but Lynn is living in Miami, and this is very good for Florida, in my opinion, and for Florida Bitcoin. But my
Mhm.
point is, okay, I am doing something. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm turning 60. Oh, God, on
Mm,
November 28th, and the Thanksgiving weekend happens from like November 23rd or 4th to November 28th. And
mm,
my birthday is not on Thanksgiving. My birthday is on the Sunday, which sucks. I like when my birthday's on Thanksgiving. Anyway,
yeah.
and that happens every 7 years. It happens, but so um, I want everyone on social media for that weekend to change their middle names to Free Ross.
Nice.
And that's my goal.
Okay.
And this is what I want for my birthday. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're on, so you can be like Archaic, Free Ross, Skids. I'm
You
James
got it, man. I will do it.
Free Ross, Ray. And, I'm hoping to do this with everybody, that weekend. I mean, is what I'm asking for. Obviously, I've already done it. I'm not the first who thought of it. There's other people who have done this in their social
Right.
media name before me. I'm a lowly peon in this, but it's an honor to fight for Linda Ulbricht, and I have this fantasy. I mean, I'm going back to Porkfest, and in the fantasy, like Ross Ulbricht is there and he's
Mm,
free, and we
right.
have him.
Yeah. That would
And
be awesome if we could pull that off. That would be one of the
yeah,
coolest things in
yeah,
the history of actual ever. But all right, man, James, I gotta tell you, man, I always love talking to you. Like
well, anytime.
we did this before. We were talking nuclear. Then we had Mark Snyder.
Yeah, we can have him
Um,
on again. I mean,
oh
that
no,
would be
he's
great.
coming back, baby.
Yeah,
I've already
we may
had
do it again.
conversations with him.
I,
We're
I
gonna do this
learned
thing.
I learned more about the sodium reactors that he wants.
Well, I don't
Guess
think
what?
that. I don't think you're
They're
right.
even
I
worse.
think he will be interested to hear what you know now, like what you know. So we're gonna do this again with Mark again, and we're gonna have a conversation about because I've learned a lot more than I knew then, and you learned more,
Yeah,
and it's going to be a very good conversation, I personally think. So everyone needs to look forward to that because Me and James
on
are
that
going to
subject, on the
really
subject of
put
looking
Mark to
forward
the
to
test.
on the subject of looking forward to nuclear conversations, there's one coming up really soon with the float guy, and Alex. Oh shit, what's his last name? Um, the float guy. Hang on, hang on. All right, Alex. Yeah, Alex Martin. Okay, and
Oh, he's very smart.
I did a long podcast with him about energy from thorium, but he focused in on the weirdest part of all, which is something
Mm.
that I try to avoid. Like I try to avoid the subject of me wanting to nuke Mars because that upsets people, and I try to avoid.
Probably, you think?
Well, look, it upsets me that we have to destroy our robots. Our Martian robots are the coolest thing we've got. But anyway, we must nuke Mars. But
Okay. Okay. I guess we have to. What the fuck?
what was I saying? I've even forgotten what I was saying now.
Oh my God, there's something wrong with you.
No, no, but we have besides wanting to nuke Mars, I have various plans. You know that peaceful. The thing is, people have thought my plan to nuke Mars with the entire U.S. and world nuclear weapons inventory is a peacenik plan to get rid of all the nuclear weapons on this planet.
I
And,
mean, look, if it works, right? If everyone can just agree, like, let's just nuke Mars,
well,
right?
it would be
And they send all their nuclear weapons and hit Mars.
well. We have to do it.
There's a pretty good argument to be like, look, it helped.
What we have to do is create an atmosphere and then create a magnetic field to retain the
I
atmosphere.
know.
And it
I
turns
I
out,
understand. Like
yeah, it
I've
turns
heard
out
Elon Musk talk about this.
there's a kind of nuke that does electromagnetic pulses, and we could do it in a directional way and nuke the living shit out of both poles of Mars at once
Right.
and make
And then
ourselves
and
a
then try to build
potency.
this like
I mean, it
I
hasn't ever been done.
100% understand where you're coming from. Like I've heard this argument and this conversation, and so it
Mhm.
makes total sense to me, James. Like 100%, I get it. I don't know it works, obviously, because there's no way
So,
to know until we actually fucking
look,
try,
let's
which
suppose
is weird, you know?
we try it and it doesn't work. We've still got
Well,
we've
then
still
we
gotten rid of
probably
all the
burn
nukes.
the universe to the ground and we all die. It's fine.
No, no,
Like,
but
whatever.
if we send them all to Mars and let's say they're all duds, we've still gotten rid of all the nukes, you know, and they might not have been duds if they were on Earth.
That's
So,
true, which would have been, like, in all honesty, wouldn't that be one of the greatest things we've ever done?
yeah,
Like,
and
get rid of all the damn nuclear weapons. That's actually a really good idea. Like, let's do that.
not just
Like,
as a good idea. I mean, the thing is, as a dude, I mean, okay, you know, Jess Mears wants to like marry or at least date Elon Musk and all that, and she wants to be space Oprah and all that.
yeah,
I
she's
want to
weird.
blow up Mars.
She's super
Okay.
weird.
No,
You
no,
want to blow
I
up
love Jess.
Mars?
I love
That's
Jess. I
not
want
the
to blow up
right way
Mars
to say that,
because
bro.
the
I want to
difference
blow
is
up Mars.
the difference is, you know, Jess has Jess is a woman. I'm a man.
Yeah,
You know, we
I
have to
mean,
blow things
she's
up. We
look.
must.
Jess is she's attractive. She's smart. Like,
Oh,
but when
she's
she
great.
says shit like that, you're like, stop it. But the whole
But
blow up Mars thing,
let
I'm
her
like,
be Space
eh.
Oprah. Look, she has as much chance of being Space Oprah as I do of blowing up Mars. She probably has more chance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was one of the things I was talking to Mark Snyder earlier, and he's I think my most returning guest on my show. Anyway, he said something along the lines of uh, uh fuck. I lost my train of thought.
We've both
Well,
been doing that.
anyway, that
We've
happens.
both been doing that.
Oh,
We
no,
need
no, no,
to
no, no.
go.
Okay, so he was talking about like um nuclear whatever, like our ability to generate power, that kind of thing, or whatever. And it was very interesting that what he was saying, but basically, what it really came down to was that fucking we just don't know what the fuck we're doing anymore. Like we're just nonsense,
Well,
you know.
he's looking at people. He knows. I was looking around, but actually, my charts are down in my car. But there's that energy density chart that shows the it's a cartoon, and it says the real scientists make their point with enough paper or something like that, and it shows a log scale illustration of how much paper you'd need to print out how much
Mhm.
more energy density nuclear has than coal or any of those. And coal is
Yeah,
like
dude.
46, and nuclear is like 76 million. And our minds, even the difference between 46 and 1 million is so vast, our minds don't comprehend it. And
Right.
the words million and billion sound so similar. It's just like the words fission and fusion. It sounds
Mhm.
so similar that it's conducive to human confusion. And
Hundred percent, man.
we're easily
100%.
fooled without these problems. But we're easy to fool. As Feynman said, I think it is you. The the worst danger is to fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. And he meant
Yeah,
himself and
yeah.
you and everyone. When you want to be fooled, you can be fooled really easily.
Oh, yeah.
And especially with something like, okay, back to the subject of e-gold and first mover advantage and Bitcoin. Even with that, you are easy to fool into thinking that you're smart. Gosh, you're so smart and you're so great, and that's why it's successful and not the first mover advantage thing. No, you're
Mhm.
not special. Nothing special.
Yeah.
The world is an evil place. Epstein didn't kill himself. All these things are
Epstein didn't kill himself.
I don't want to keep you too
No,
long.
you're right.
I don't want to
Like,
mess with your
you
show.
I completely
I'm sure we're
understand where
going
you're coming
long,
from.
aren't we? I mean, who knows? It feels like we're
Yeah.
going long, but
We are. So I was actually going to just bring that up. We're closing in on. Well, actually, we're not closing in. We're well over an hour.
oh god,
So anyway, James,
we'll
where
do it.
can people? I don't know if you have anything that people can follow you.
So,
Obviously, Facebook. You got
yeah, well,
yourself
I'm
in
zucked for
trouble.
another week. I'm zucked for another week on Facebook because I threatened a non-existent entity. But but I'm on Twitter. I'm on Float. I really like Float, the FLOTE guys. Except Alex Martin. Okay, we did this wonderful show on Thorium, and Alex did all this research. He's super smart. I mean, one of the humbling things about this is, I find all these really, really fucking smart people. But Alex did all this research on the weirdest part of atomic of all, which is radiation hormesis. And
Mhm.
radiation hormesis is the idea that, okay, obviously an atomic bomb exploding next door to me is going to kill me. And the question is zero radiation good for me? Because bananas are radioactive, and
Mhm.
the Brazil nuts in this bag of mixed nuts, those are radioactive much more than other nuts. I don't know why, but it's true. And the question is, if we're in a slightly radioactive world, you know, is radiation bad for you? And the answer is no. And then
No.
the question is, might it be good for you? And the answer looks like it might be yes, because there was this bill
Ooh.
in Taiwan. Yeah, we'll discuss it with what's his name. But there was this building in Taiwan where this guy got this idea, hey, let's make some cheap cobalt
Right,
steel
right, right,
by
right,
using
right,
cobalt
right.
60 in the
But
steel.
okay. I'm gonna stop you right now
Yes,
because you, me, and Mark
crazy.
are gonna actually discuss this. And Mark being the nuclear expert and like legit, he's a nuclear operator. He's been doing this for
We need a
three
doctor.
decades. Like he knows what he's talking about. I
Mhm.
don't want to monkey up a situation where me or you may actually say something that we can't back up because we don't know, right?
But we need a doctor. I mean, and my
What do you
old
mean,
boss.
doctor?
Well, my old boss was a radiation oncologist. I can try to look him up, but we need a doctor who's open-minded to the idea of, okay, there's radiation. For example, the best example I've seen is ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Obviously, too much of it causes an extra white guy like
I
me
understand
to
what
get
you mean now.
sunburn, but none of it means I get no vitamin D. And so
Right.
the same idea with other forms of radiation. Suppose it's true of other forms of low level background radiation, and
Right.
suppose that would be the reason that some of these radiations, like I live in a place near warm mineral springs, and
Mm.
Warm Mineral Springs is a pretty radioactive place in Florida. It's not very radioactive. It's not dangerous. It's probably less radioactive than some places in Colorado, and airline pilots get a lot of radiation. There's all kinds of radiation all over. Like I said, these Brazil nuts, the big kind of nuts that I really like, those are radioactive. Everything's radioactive, but it's not dangerous.
Nice. And everyone heard it here first. James likes big nuts, not little nuts.
Yes.
So that's
All right, I'll
important.
shut up. I'll shut up about nuts now. But it's
I'm
great
just
talking to you,
kidding.
friend. It's great talking
Um,
to you, and we will come back and do a whole show about
James,
hormesis, thorium, and
Jesus
all that shit.
Christ. Fuck. James, I uh, I I can't even thank you enough for for doing this. You are by far one of the most informed and funniest people I've met in this particular journey. Now that said, we will, James and I, be having a conversation with Mark Snyder again. We don't know exactly when. There's three of us. We have to work out the time schedule, time scale. We've got to come together. Anyway, James is obviously one of the smartest people when it comes to these kind of situations. He is always at least available to at least look at what's going on. So, y'all need to honestly appreciate what it is that he's trying to accomplish. And James, where can people follow you, get your perspective?
Okay, well, James Milton Ray on Twitter, and pretty much that same James M. Ray on Float, just all of that. And you know, uh, wait for our next show. This other guy, Mark Schneider, is actually really smart, and he's he knows a lot more than me. He likes the kind of reactor that scares the shit out of me, but it's nothing new. Us people, I'm into nuclear, and I'm into new ideas. And so I have to be open to ideas, even the ones that scare the shit out of me,
All right.
which
Um,
multi-sodium does.
you I hope you enjoyed this particular uh I just hope y'all enjoyed it. Like it's a fun game and I hope y'all enjoyed it. So, whatever. If you didn't, I don't honestly give a damn. We'll talk to
Until
y'all
next
later.
time.
Oh shit. I messed up.